You are on Messy in the Middle with Jeanie. I am Jeanie and I am in the middle. I am middle age, middle income, middle America, and I can be quite messy. And I believe that life is messy and that mess is beautiful. And so, well, it can be. Anyway, sometimes it's just a mess. But I think for the most part, life is beautiful when it's messy. So, today, I am going to talk a little bit about plants and having plants and growing plants and things like that. And I know that there's a lot of videos about plants out there, and a lot of people talk about different types of plants and all of that. And today, I am just going to talk about having plants, being a plant person, and how I came to be a plant person and uh, what I think it kind of takes to be a plant person, I guess. So let's see. First things first. Last video, I was working on a chain for my climbing plants, and I did promise that I would introduce you. I also promised that I would show you the chain once it was done. So I have the one piece of chain back here that I created, which is they are silver and gold colored rings, and then in the middle there's these little jewels that are hanging down. And so here's kind of a closer up section of the chain. And, it's not perfect, but I do like it. And I think that it'll be pretty and, you know, from a distance with plants on it, it'll be great. So, so there's that. So that is, I mean, I guess promise kept because I introduced you, I showed you the chain. These are my lovelies. And I have a lot of different types of plants. I have really started to grow attached to these. I have these pothos here, and I have the neon, and then I also have um, the jade. I don't want to push too hard. That leaf is kind of really up there right now, really straight up. Um, and so, but this guy's flopped over a little bit, so you can kind of see. Um, they are growing, and I know that I said last time that the leaves are huge, and this is kind of gigantic. I've never had a pothos that had leaves the size of my hand, and so I'm pretty excited about that. I know there's a lot of people that have pothos that are bigger and all of that, but for me, I'm just gonna take it where I can get it, and when that leaf is the size of my hand, I'm pretty proud of that because that's, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people never get them that big. So there we go. And I never have before, so it's a PR for me. And then we have philodendrons over here, and I have the um, Brazil philodendron Brazil here. I like the variegation and the color of the leaves. I think they're really pretty, and they're starting to get pretty big too. And then I have the lemon lime. Maybe I have that backwards. No, I think it's lemon lime and neon. I don't know. They look very similar, and I forget sometimes. I'm thinking neon pothos, lemon lime philodendron. We're gonna go with that. I could be wrong. Whatever. Correct me. It's fine. Then over here I have it's either an enjoy or a pearls and jade. I don't really know. What I find interesting is that the leaves are kind of irregularly shaped. So maybe that's an indicator, but I have a hard time telling the two apart. And so I know it's one or the other. Well, I'm pretty sure, like 95% sure that it's one or the other, either an Enjoy or Pearls and Jade. The spots that are more white are actually kind of more yellow as it gets bigger. So maybe that's the Enjoy, because I think the Pearls and Jade stays pretty white. And there's a lot of other variegation here too. So when you look at something like this one has like 4 different colors of green on it. So maybe, again, if you know, tell me. If you don't know, you can just enjoy looking at it because I think it's really pretty. I love that the leaves have gotten so big and that it's growing so tall. Very excited about it. I'm going to kind of pull this down a little bit so you can see. Um, so this guy is the reason that I need the chain specifically right now is because they are growing taller than the stick. So I need to have something for them to grow up. And I happen to have 2 kind of pillars, posts. They support the upstairs in my living room. And so um, those, I'm going to put the chains next to those posts. So I think it'll be really pretty for them to grow up right next to those posts. And we have a lot of new little baby leaves coming. I don't know. They're doing pretty good. I feel like they're happy. This guy was not happy. About a month ago, I moved him because the sun changed in the window that was closest to him, and he developed a little spot. So started to get a little sun stressed. It bleached out the leaves quite a bit, and instead of being this real pretty kind of lime color, they got. You can see this one still has a little kind of a little stress. It's still it kind of bleached them out a little bit when they were growing in. So they are starting to darken up a little. I moved them away from the window now and next to those pillars in interior to the house more, and they are doing really well. But I am very excited about them. I said in the last video, did I say this already? In the last video that the leaves were huge, and I'm just pretty proud of myself that they're the size of my hand. So, yay. I might have said that already. Anyway, if I didn't, great. If I did, yeah, I'm just really excited about it. So, you'll see I have a couple of others. I have some Tradescantia back here. There's I think that's a Nanook, and I don't even know what this one's called. They grow, what I've found about plants is a couple of things. Let me go back to the beginning. Oh, sorry, I bumped the camera. So, my very first plant was when I was a child. I had an aloe plant that was given to me by my granny. I loved that aloe plant, and I, for a little while, forgot to water it. And then I panicked, and because it started to get, the leaves kind of, started to get a little soft and they started to droop a little. So I panicked a little bit, and then I overwatered it. And then when it started to turn yellow, I panicked more and I overwatered it more. And, that was back before the internet. So I couldn't just Google what was going on with my aloe plants. And for those of you that are a little bit younger, yes, in fact, I was old enough to have a plant before the internet was even in existence. So there's that. All of us middle-aged people can tell you that's the reality of our life. So, I didn't have that option. And so the only way that you can learn stuff if you don't have Google is to go to a library or to have a set of encyclopedias. Well, we didn't really have encyclopedias. And when you did, it was like, this is an aloe plant. It didn't really give you care instructions, right? So if you wanted to learn about the care of a certain plant, you would have to go to the library and check out a book on that plant and all of that. And I'm going to tell you, I was a child, so one, didn't really have access to a library except for at school. And when you're in school and you're in the library, they want you to pick out a certain type of book or a certain book, whatever. So it's just, finding information about how to grow an aloe plant, I would have just had to ask around, really. And I was a little nervous. But anyway, it ended up dying. It was even in sand. Like it was even in, pretty decent medium for an aloe plant. No, it didn't make it. So, but I did learn that I love caring for plants. And my family is big on plants. They have gardens and they have house plants. That same granny was really big into violets. She had tons of violets, and she just loved them so much. And so, and she was really great at growing them. She had the most beautiful violets. So, yeah, I think I kind of come by it. I mean, it's not like it's a hereditary thing, but I think, you just, when you grow up with something, you learn to appreciate it, right? So, or not. But anyway, point being, I love plants. I love gardening. I love all of that. And I haven't always been able to do that. When I had my daughter, and it was just her and I when she was real little, my oldest daughter, we had, I had a bunch of plants. I had a trailer house, and so it was a 16 by 80, regular standard old trailer. And in the front where the kitchen was, there was a bay window, and it had a heater vent in it. And so, boy, the plants just loved it there because it was warm, lots of light. It was facing west, so it got the nice afternoon sun. And they did really, really well. The plants really loved it in there, and I was pretty good about keeping them watered and misted and all the things. So they were happy. Um, and so then I got married and we moved to Hawaii. And if you've ever moved to Hawaii, you know that you cannot just take your plants with you to Hawaii. There's all kinds of, customs and things. And by the time they go through 40 days in customs, they're gonna probably die anyway, because you can't not water your plants for 40 days. So, and of course, they're not going to take care of them. Those customs officers have plenty more to do than take care of my plants. So, left the plants, never got them back, which is fine, not a problem. It's not like I'm harboring some kind of ill will because I didn't get my plants back, but I just never did get them back. And so I kind of had to start over. We moved to upstate New York. Upstate New York did not have, I did not have plants up there. I tried to do a little bit of gardening, but there was a lot going on up there, and the growing season is real short, so not so much. And then we moved back here to Colorado, and in the first house we were in, I started to try to grow some plants, and I put up a little arch trellis over that would go over the front window, and I had some ferns out on the porch that were really great, and they hung at different lengths, and it looked really pretty out there. And I started to work on a garden, and then the marriage fell apart, which means I moved. And that put me in a place where I wasn't really able to have plants for a while. And then the houses that I lived in were just not conducive to growing plants. You have to have light for plants, and even low light plants have to have light. So when you live in a house that's not real bright, it is hard to grow plants. So when we bought this house, one of the things that I love about this house is that it has plenty of light, but it's not direct light for the most part. I mean, this window directly behind me is a south facing window, and there's no overhang or anything. So it definitely gets plenty of light, which is why I'm starting seeds for my garden this year back there. But so this window gets tons of light, but every other window is either this one. There's another window over here that's south facing, not this one that I'm pointing at. This one that I'm pointing at is the door, and that is west facing, so it gets plenty of sun as well. But there's another window that's like this one, but it's underneath the porch, so it has overhang, so it gets sun, but it's not as intense as right here. So you have to take all that stuff into consideration when you're figuring out where to put your plants. And then the sun does move. Well, the sun doesn't move. The sun is fine. We move. And when we move, the rotation of the earth, all the things, science, whatever, changes. And it changes the way the light comes in the windows, right? In the different seasons. So this little guy was a little too close to the window, and he got a little sun stressed and then sunburnt. So I had to move him. And he's much happier in the place he is now, which is why he's starting to green up again. Anyway, so all of the things, making sure there's enough light. There's plenty of plants that grow in low light, though. I will tell you, I never realized how many houseplants really are good with low light. And I think that something that I didn't really ever think about, you think about tropical plants. When you think tropical, you think sunshine. But most tropical plants are jungle plants, and jungle plants are low and there's trees. There's a canopy of trees over them. So they get like dappled light, right? And it's certainly not bright sun all day, every day beaming down. They just don't have that. And so just kind of get to know, read up if there's a certain plant that you think you might like to have in your house, read up a little bit on the kind of light that it takes and um, kind of how much you're going to have to water it, all of that. I would say that the um, the biggest thing that I hear is, "Oh, I love that you have lots of plants. I wish I could have plants. I have a brown thumb. I can't even get plants to grow." I hear that a lot. And while I think that that's definitely, I don't want to devalue someone's feelings or anything, but I feel like the biggest thing in that is not necessarily that you can't grow a plant, it's that you maybe haven't had the right plants. I feel like uh, when you really kind of evaluate your life and how much time you're going to have to spend on fussing over the plant and um, how much, what your lighting situation is like and those kinds of things. If they're heavy feeders and need a lot of fertilizer, and you just aren't going to have the time to make sure that they get all of that. Those are all things to take into consideration when you're choosing a plant. And I think that, you know, it takes practice. Like I said, my very first plant was an aloe plant and I killed it. And I feel like as far as plants go, aloe plant's fairly easy. So, and I am absolutely not ashamed to say that this happens, right? And all of us that have learned to love plants, we learn to appreciate that they all are a little bit different and they all have a little bit different needs. Even these, they're different colors, right? So they have different light needs. Like this one that has the darker leaves on it is I keep it turned a little bit more away from the light, and this that has the brighter leaves is a little more towards the light. And you can kind of tell because you can tell that these leaves are growing up a little bit, so they're trying to reach for the light a little bit because they're kind of behind. It sits like at the same height as my couch and behind my couch. So, and there's another plant next to it. So they don't get as much light right through here. So there's like a bare spot right here where it's not getting as much light. And so the leaves are growing kind of out this way so they can get a hold of as much light as they need. So you just have to learn. So now when I put it back, I've seen this, kind of right in my face. I've seen that. So I'm going to go ahead and maybe turn it just a little bit so that it gets a little bit different lighting, or maybe put it not so far behind that other plant so that it gets a little bit more, and then it'll fill in a little bit. Um, Also, it's only one little vine right here, where on this side it's two or three. So it looks a little more full. But this one, it's got some stuff growing. I think it's good. It's gonna fill in. But yeah. So you just gotta get to know them. You gotta learn. They all kind of have their own personality. I have a plant that if I don't talk to it every day, it pouts. I really feel people think I'm ridiculous, but I promise you, I have had people take care of it for me and water it and all of the things. And when I'm not around it for several days in a row, it starts to pout. And just gets droopy. It's a peace lily. Uh, Hang on, I'll grab it. Okay, so this is my peace lily, and well, one of them. I have another one. There's a couple of different varieties, and this one is the real common variety that you can get from your, even your grocery store. Sometimes they'll have them. It has kind of the smaller leaves, and I do have the one that has the larger leaves as well. But this is Fancy, and Fancy pouts. If she does not feel like she's getting enough attention, she pouts. So right now you can see I've paid her enough attention because she's very perky, but she does get very sad and pouty if I don't pay attention. So, but she's got new leaves and all that good stuff. She's got some that are a little dry, which is interesting. I'll have to clean that up a little. She's looking a little sad right now, even though she's not pouting. Anyway, so that's the other thing. You get to know their personalities. You get to know kind of what level of care they need. If they want you to fuss over them a little bit more, I would say err on the side of not fussing. I would say err on the side of borderline ignoring. For like if you feel like they're maybe disgruntled, if you err on the side of ignoring for maybe a week or so and see what happens with them. Maybe even longer. Maybe you overwatered. Maybe like hold on to the plant, tip the pot, make sure there's not a whole bunch of water sitting in the bottom. Because most of them do not like to be wet. The soil is typically very airy, and they get a lot of air to their roots, and so they don't like to be like bogged down with all the water. They can't breathe well, and so they end up dying. They end up kind of turning yellow and wanting to die out when you get them too much water and you leave them in the water. So I would err on the side of not as much water, unless of course you have something like a fern, and then I don't even know if you can overwater a fern. I mean, I'm sure you can. I'm not a botanist. I am not a horticulturist. I am just a plant lover. And so but I would say I have a little lemon button fern that's hanging up, so I can't get it for you right now. But I don't think I can overwater that thing. I feel like I water that thing a couple times a week, and it is happy as a little clam. If I don't water it, though, it actually does okay for a little while. So it's not, it's pretty forgiving. I wouldn't start with a fern, though. I definitely think for people who are prone to forgetting plants, maybe try something like a Hoya. They have real kind of waxy leaves, and they're kind of almost like hard. And so the cuticle is really thick, so they don't lose moisture as quickly. So if you don't water them, they're actually usually happier if they don't get watered as much. I have a few Hoyas, and they are in an east-facing window, and they are growing really well, and I probably water them once every 10 days to 2 weeks. So I think also remember that I live in Colorado, and my humidity here currently in my house is 23%. I am not a fan of misting everything because I think it just leaves water stains on things, so I don't mist. The only thing I do mist is this back here. This is my Spanish moss, and I do mist that, but beyond that, I don't really mist anything. And at 23% humidity, the majority of my plants are tropical plants, and you would think that they would be dying because they don't get enough humidity, but really, they do just fine. You just have to, well, Fancy's a little crispy right now, which could be because of the low humidity. It is like coming out of winter time, and there's not a lot of moisture right now. So maybe that's why she's a little fussy. But honestly, I mean, I know that a lot of people spend a lot of time and energy on humidifiers and I don't know, making cabinets to make sure that they have, but really I don't do that. I don't mist. And we, like I said, are at 23% humidity right now. So, and you see, I mean, they're doing pretty good. I also have alocasia. I have a monstera, like a pretty good sized monstera. I have a lot of different types of plants. I have a, let's see, I have a couple of different kinds of alocasia. Um, I have different succulents, which of course they like the dry, so they're not really a fair judge. But the alocasias are doing great. I get new leaves on them all the time, and they're doing just fine. I feel like for alocasias, it's more about light and making sure that they don't sit in water. They tend to really get grumpy when you sit them in water. And then I have, oh, brain, um, calatheas. Um, that's not the word I was looking for. I'll think of it in a minute. But I have calatheas. I have a couple of different kinds of calatheas, and people talk about how they need humidity so much. They do fine. I have they grow, they get new leaves all the time. They don't get big giant leaves. I feel like if you wanted big giant leaves on them, you might need to give them a little bit more moisture, a little more humidity, and you can always do like pebble trays and things like that to boost the humidity in the air. Um, but I have, well, I have a Maranta and four different types of calathea, and they're fine um, without the extra humidity. So, not that I'm advocating for not doing humidity if that's something you want to do. I'm just saying I wouldn't panic if you're kind of new to plants and you think, oh, I can't have that plant because I don't have humidity. I get none, and they seem to do okay. So I think it's more about how often you water them and making sure that you're not overwatering them, but they're getting plenty of water, but they have place to drain the water so that then they can either wick the water back up. Like self-watering pots are really nice. Um, but I do like a combination of a really chunky mix, like what you use for orchids and steroids, stuff like that, with the bark and everything in there. But I also put soil in with it so that it's got a little bit of moisture, a little more moisture retention. And so because I know that I'm in a drier climate, I adjust the soil accordingly. So I think maybe that's probably just as key as making sure there's humidity in the air. Anyway, those are my personal, I don't know, I have all kinds of different plants and different varieties of plants. And uh, one of my favorites is my Raven ZZ. I looked and looked and looked for one of those, and I finally got one of those. And of course, that one doesn't take a lot of water either. It almost works like a succulent. So, um, again, living in Colorado, it's dry here. We're in a desert. Um, so anyway, there's that. How did I get into plants? So other than being a person who, and this video is creeping up on 30 minutes, so I'm going to kind of try to wrap it up here. I started to get into plants because my family all loves plants, and they garden, and we just grow things. I don't know. We just do. So, um, I got into gardening and plant care and all of that pretty early on in my life. And, my mom always had beautiful roses and, well, both my moms, my mother and my stepmother both had beautiful roses. Um, and and we always had garden stuff. Uh, my great grandmother had a huge garden. I think I briefly touched on that before. Um, so not really necessary to go into detail about that, but everybody has just always, my granny had violets that were just lovely. So there's a lot of plant growing people in my life. And so I feel like I just kind of developed a love for plants from that. And I've always really liked just watching stuff grow. I had kids. I liked watching them grow. I have plants. I like watching them grow. I really love just seeing something really thrive and really do well. And so I have, I feel like I have replaced my, uh, replaced is the wrong word. I feel like a surrogate for having a house full of kids is that I have a house full of plants. And so um, they're all a little bit different. They all have different characteristics and personalities and all of that. And I just love watching them grow and get bigger and they are and just see them be happy and cozy and all the good things. So that's how I got into plants. I just really enjoy knowing that I'm taking care of something and nurturing. It's my nature to nurture, as they say. And so, um, anyway, that's how I got into plants. But I really think in to come full circle, I really think that if you think you want plants, but you think that you can't grow plants, I would recommend going to a plant nursery and talking to the people there. They are so helpful and they love plants. Like these are people that work with plants all the time. And especially if you go like right now when it's a little cooler before the real like garden rush, that all the people that are doing outdoor stuff, that is going to hit here in the next month or so if you're in this area. For some of you, it's probably already hit, and for some people, it probably won't hit for another month after that. We don't put anything in the ground here until about Mother's Day, just because it still has the chance of freezing. But about a month from now is when everybody is really going gangbusters with seeds and prepping the yard and all of that kind of stuff. So if you go now to your nursery, there's not a ton of people there. And they have a lot of indoor plants because that's the only thing people can grow right now. So you have less foot traffic and less people in your way when you're wanting to look at stuff. And the people who are in the nursery are just dying to talk to somebody about growing things. So they are super open to answering questions and helping you. They can really help you find the absolute right plant for you. So if you are thinking you want to start growing stuff, you'd really love to have a house plant, but you're not sure what to get. Definitely kind of evaluate your life a little bit before you go. How much spare time do you have? Are you a person who gets called away a lot? Like maybe you have a job where they call you and you have to be gone for 2 or 3 days or a week or whatever. And if that's the case, obviously you're going to want a plant that you can leave for 2 weeks and not have to water it. So definitely things to take into consideration, but they can help you with all of that. And so definitely go to your nursery and do it now. Do it now while they're not super busy and they're just waiting to answer questions. They love that. That's their whole life is plants, right? So they want to answer your questions. So go and talk to them and tell them kind of what you're looking for. If you like a certain color of plant, if you like something that has some, like this has a pink leaves, or you can have, if you want something that just has some variegation like these have, kind of just talk to them a little bit and they can make a recommendation and get you in the right place so that you can be a plant lover. If you love plants and don't have them, that's my suggestion. Anyway, this is Messy in the Middle with Jeanie, and I am Jeanie, and I literally could talk all day about plants. So I'm going to let you go. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.